Before the introduction of money, people exchanged their goods directly. Hey, do you want to give me 10 eggs for 10 tomatoes? Deal. But because each person valued different products with different criteria, it was extremely difficult to get the right thing at the right time. Hey, do you want to give me 3 fish for 6 tomatoes? For 6 tomatoes? No, you should give me at least 60 tomatoes. That's too much, it's unfair. Then you won't have my fish. Ugh, and now how do I get fish? It would be useful to have something that has a universal value to exchange goods efficiently. An intermediary. What if we use this stone to define the values of our goods? 1 tomato will be worth a stone. 1 egg will also be worth a stone. 1 fish will be worth 15 stones. I sold 45 tomatoes and got 45 stones. With this, I will be able to buy 3 fish. In this way, by introducing an intermediary, people could define the value of their goods and exchange them efficiently. And since stones were used to buy things, the idea of saving naturally arose. Preserve stones for any emergency that arises. Although it was a breakthrough for humanity, the stones were not perfect. As each region had different type of stones, the value was not universal. A valuable stone from one region was just a common stone in other regions. To solve this problem, gold was introduced. I'm selling this piece of diamond for 5 pounds of gold. 5 pounds of gold is very heavy to move. You can deposit your 5 pounds of gold in our bank, and in exchange, we will give you this voucher for the 5 pounds deposited. Whenever you give us that voucher, we will give you the 5 pounds of gold, whenever you want. Wow, this voucher is very light and convenient. This is how banks came out, and the vouchers we know today as banknotes. Originally, vouchers directly represented an amount of gold for which you could exchange it in a bank. But banks were smart, very smart. They knew they couldn't create gold out of thin air, but they could create more vouchers and lend in exchange for interest. As the economy grew in a country, the need for vouchers, which were literally money, increased. Because if the amount of goods increases and the amount of demand also increases, more money will be needed for the transaction to take place. Faced with this need, banks in several countries began printing money to lend, except the US. As the money of many countries began to decouple from gold, only the US continued to back its dollars with gold, causing others to use the dollar as a backing for their own currency. But the US is also a country made by people. When the US finally decoupled the dollar from gold, money was no longer backed by gold, but by the economic status of each country and the trust of the people. When an economy grows, people earn more and spend more, which causes production to increase and the economy to grow even more, requiring more money. Faced with this demand, the central banks of each country decide to print money to continue boosting the economy. The sequence should always be like this. First the demand, and then the increase in the monetary base, which means the amount of money in circulation. That's why central banks cannot print money just because they feel like it. If money is printed to be distributed to people and make everyone rich, while neither demand nor production is at the same rate of increase, there will be too much money in circulation for too few goods. This means that more money will be needed to buy the same amount of goods. In other words, inflation. On the other hand, if the amount of money remains the same but the amount of goods and services increases, we will have a deflation. Too much inflation makes people want to spend all their money before it loses value, causing shortages of goods. The production can't just increase overnight to avoid shortage, and imports become extremely expensive in times of inflation because it means the currency is devaluated. The exchange rates make the country lose so much money, forcing people to keep suffering the shortages. Too much deflation is bad too, because it makes people hold on to their cash and reduce spending, making revenues to fall, unemployment rates to rise, and a spiral of negative effects. This is natural, because in times of deflation, your money will be able to buy more goods in the future than now. You will want to save it. The central bank, or the Fed in case of the US, is responsible for keeping the economy stable by avoiding extreme inflation and deflation. They do it by controlling the amount of money in circulation with their monetary policies. And this is money and how it works. Thank you.